pretty simple. I win. Google me.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah, you mean Gene Okerlund. You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. And you know that means the Todd Father joins us from myjumpshot.com. Todd Leary, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Giving you the mobile version this morning.
Absolutely. Coming to you from the mobile Hard Truth Distilling Company studios.
There you go.
On the ride, taking some fine Hard Truth products somewhere. Just kidding. Yeah, I don't want to beat on the game last night too much. We covered that in the post-game show, but a lot of comments from people that may not have been able to catch it, but it is what it is. And I mentioned before we got on that you had talked about when you saw Indiana was pulling in Umar Ballo, that you were afraid of kind of this buddy ball type of offense again. And we saw the attempt at that last night that didn't go too well.
Yeah, I mean, I first off, I mean, I saw a lot of comments, not just on your show, but on Twitter and some other things about Indiana fans are pretty negative about the game last night. And it wasn't, I don't feel like it was that bad. I thought there were some stretches where it was alarming, and that's kind of like, this is the time for that to happen. These games are the time for that to happen. And so, you know, I don't want to seem too Debbie Downer on them, but there was definitely some times last night that the offense looked like a bunch of guys that were thrown together out of the transfer portal that weren't all on the same page. And, you know, that's what this early pre-conference schedule is for. They're going to need to clean it up pretty quickly because next week in Paradise Island, they've got or Atlantis, they've got some tough matchups, and then they're not going to be able to play like that. You're not going to be able to go stretches where you don't score consistently for 5 or 6 minutes in a row. If you do, you're going to find yourself in a hole you probably can't get out of. So I don't want to seem too negative about it, but there was definitely some situations offensively yesterday that it was more back to the old slow ball, 2 guys inside, we're going to slug it down your throat, and that didn't work out against UNC-Greensboro, so it's definitely not going to work out against a Big Ten opponent.
No, and kind of the last thing, this is a good comment, asking, does Indiana game plan for opponents, or do they just show up and do exactly what they expect? Which it's a good question. Is Indiana coming in and saying, all right, we're doing our game plan of what we're going to do, and it doesn't really have any impact from whom they're playing? And I wonder that a lot myself, because it's important that you take what your game plan is and you develop that from your opponent as well a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think that question can be answered differently depending on the time of year. I think this time of year, you go out there and you put your unit on the floor, and you're trying to develop these guys and accomplish what you want to accomplish. Once the Big Ten season starts, and I will say, you know, these opponents in the battle for Atlantis, you change that a little bit, and it's a little bit different, and you will game plan more for the opponents. And when they've got a player, when the other team has a player or two that is, you know, a problem or something you're definitely going to have to deal with, I think you obviously game plan a little bit differently in those games. I don't think UNC-Greensboro, I doubt they watched a ton of film, and I doubt that they game planned a ton for that particular opponent. But in general, in the Big Ten season, you game plan based on who you're playing and what your matchups advantages are and what the other team's advantages might be. And so it's a good question. You're right. It's a terrific question. But at this time of the year, I think most coaches are trying to work on their team, especially in a home game against an opponent you're supposed to beat, you know, by double figures. They're probably working more on their stuff than worrying about the opponent.
Which makes sense. You've
Right.
got to get that down first before you can do anything else. Mackenzie Mbako, just he had an off night last night, and sometimes it's, boy, once that slide starts going, it is just so hard to get it back because it's not in the flow of what is going on with everything else, and now you're trying to work yourself back into something. And Miles Rice was playing well, and then Bryson Tucker came in the second half and was playing well. So it did seem like McKenzie never was able to get into any kind of a flow.
Yeah, and the fact that he can still score 9 points and rebound fairly well and do some other things like I think he's matured a lot from his freshman to sophomore year, and that this might have been a game he had maybe 3 points in the past. But yeah, I think Bryson Tucker's second half definitely influenced, not just Mbako, but everybody else, because he was hot. Everyone could see he was hot, and that's the sign of a good team when you ride a guy when they're hot. And the fact that Indiana had another player step up. We've seen Miles Rice step up a couple times. We've seen Mbako step up. I think Balo and Renew combined have stepped up and been really solid and good through some games. And so when you've got different people this time of year that are stepping up, making big plays, and you're able to ride them a little bit, that's a great sign. I don't look at Mbako struggling. I look at Bryson Tucker, gaining some confidence. And so we're never going to have to worry about Mbako losing confidence in his scoring ability. Now, he's got to do some other things that keeps him on the floor. Rebounding, he's done a great job early in the season at rebounding. That's a huge addition. But I'm not worried over a one-game stretch against UNC-Greensboro about Mbako. If he struggles, the whole time down in Atlanta, that'd be a different story. But right now, that one game, I'm not concerned about him. I thought Bryson Tucker was the shining spot.
Oh, absolutely. And then I saw a video from before the game, pre-game workouts. Mbako worked his way around how you like the all-star 3-point deal, where you taking. Right. He didn't miss a shot all the way around. Didn't miss a stinking shot. He is so smooth, like you've always said, and it looks so effortlessly. And sometimes it's just not there for whatever reason.
Well, I mean, look, there's a big difference. I could probably go around that arc and not miss a shot today, right, at my age. Like that's when you're warming up and all that. Like you're trying to get your stroke set. Like you're just making sure everything feels good at that point. And but that's really not a game situation. When you watch those shots, outside, how many shots does he get where he stands still, somebody throws him a pass, there's no defense, and he just gets to knock it down? That's not really realistic. You're just working on your stroke at that point. But throughout the game didn't play out. I mean, the team made 5 3-pointers for the game. They, the team in general, I don't think ever really got it going from the outside, other than Bryson Tucker. We started the game out with a 3 from Miles Rice. And outside of that, most of his play was inside for the most part. I think he made one more outside shot, but he made a lot of drives to the basket and got it going that way. I think the only guy that really made consistent outside shots was Bryson Tucker, and those were all mid-range for the most part. So, I don't think it was a letdown game. I think it was a game they're kind of getting prepared for what they're doing. Are they looking ahead? I mean, I think that term's overused a little bit, but I also think it's human nature to not be looking past this opponent at what you've got coming up next week, because it's a big week. Like, let's not kid each other. It's a big week for this basketball program and team, and I think next week they had to be looking towards that a little bit.
Well, and that's a great point. You've been through it. How hard was it when, let's say you were playing Wisconsin, that was your next game up, but right behind that was Purdue.
Right.
How hard was it to say, oh, we're going to beat the crap out of Wisconsin? I'm my focus is Purdue, because they're ranked number 8 in the country and we're 7 in the country, whatever the case may be. And that big game's coming, but you got this game in front of it first. How hard is it to not do that?
I mean, the correct answer and what coaches want you to say is, oh, no, we take one game at a time.
Oh, all right.
But that's just not realistic. That's not the way that it is. And I'll tell you this. I know it's a fact that when we used to play, it's a little different now because of ESPN and Fox Sports and all the different networks. But it used to be when it was a weekend game, we almost always played on CBS. We almost always played the nationally televised game on the weekend. Those games are handled differently. You have to do different interviews. You have to do interviews with the announcers. You have to do interviews with, all different kinds of different people that come in for the game. So there's definitely a difference between the nationally televised games and the ones that aren't. And, last night's game, it's almost like a scrimmage. I mean, I shouldn't say that because it's demeaning to UNC-Greensboro, but it would have been, I'll call it a fluke or a gigantic upset, if nothing else, if Greensboro would have beat Indiana. That being the case, it's a little bit okay for them to not look past them, but be looking forward to what they've got coming up. They have a great opportunity this week to put themselves in a national spotlight, to go down to Atlantis, handle their business with Louisville right away, and then you've got a matchup against a team that's considered a national championship contender in Gonzaga. I'm assuming they're going to win their game against West Virginia, and that being the case, you've got an awesome opportunity to put your name on the map out there. And so, yeah, we would be stupid to not think these guys are excited about that opportunity. And if you call it looking past Greensboro, then that's what it is. But really, it's more about just being excited about that opportunity they have coming up.
Yeah, and they can go down there and make people forget all about this stuff
Totally.
very easily and get a couple of wins in that, and that will do just that. Switching gears a little bit, Indiana football has done a remarkable job of playing game to game, and that has been a mantra that we have heard. As a matter of fact, I go back to the Big Ten football media days when I had three different players that were on, and I forget, there were different questions, but each time anything that had to do with something forward, they were not having it. They were so already, and that's amazing because it's a new coach, new everything, but they were already in the, oh no, we've got Florida International first. They wouldn't talk about anything other than Florida International. I had Kurt Signetti on. I said, Kurt, I said, boy, I see a direct path to a 6-0 start here. Florida International. I mean, and that has been preached every week, and you can tell that this team took that to heart, and that has worked for them because every game's a grind. Every game is different, and they've done a tremendous job. Now they get to go into a game where they've been able to, for 2 weeks, focus on nothing but the biggest game of the year. And yeah, Kurt can say that it's the biggest game because it's the next one, but this is a situation we all know that's bullshit.
Right. Yep.
This is the game. It is the most important game in the history of Indiana football, going back to 1801 when the Pioneers crawled out of the woods somewhere and whatever. So,
yeah, I mean, this game is no doubt about it different. But the way that, and this is the way we have to accept it and look at it. The only reason why the team is looked at the way they are right now is because they handled all of their business all the way up to this point. The first 10 games of the season, they handled them one at a time, and they got themselves to this point. Any slip up in any game up to this point, and this game is not near as big as it is. And so there you have to give a ton of credit to Coach Signetti. Football is a little bit different than college basketball in that, this year is a little different because there's a lot of teams that are going to have losses going into the playoffs, but it didn't used to be that way. And you still, as an Indiana team, they couldn't have a slip up in the schedule that they had. The SEC teams can have some slip ups. Ohio State can have that loss because it's to Oregon, the number one team in the country. Indiana didn't have that opportunity. They couldn't slip up in any of their games. And I think Coach Signetti got them to understand that from the very beginning. And that is a coaching win. That's something that is not easy to do, but they were very successful at doing. And so, yeah, but Jim, we all know, I don't care who anyone is. I think Coach Cignetti is as much like the average guy and the average fan as any coach I can remember in a while. This game's different. It's definitely different. And the players know it. The coaches know it. You win this game and things are handled differently with your program.
Oh, and he knows it because he
Sure.
knows the statement he made
Sure.
on the Big Ten stage a year ago.
Yep.
And as all the things that he's done, all the comments, he's Mr. Quote. He's probably the most quoted person in America outside of maybe Trump or someone like that. This dude is seriously probably the most quoted person. He's coming up with quotes left and right when he gets his new deal. Why would I leave? We're the emerging superpower in college football. I mean, that's another one. It's just like Cignetti-isms are all over the place, and people love it. Now, if he was 2-8 right now,
right,
it would be a little different.
The only reason he's quoted is because they're 10-0, and they have handled the reason they get to be that way because they have handled their business and they have put themselves in this position that people, people do quote him and they do listen to him and they do enjoy his interviews. They do want to hear what he has to say because they're 10-0. If they were 5-5, no one would interview him, but secondly, no one would care what he had to say. And so that they have earned that respect and they have earned that right. And that's the fun part of sports. That's why you work all summer long. That's why you work this year for next year. Like, that's why you put in the hours of dedication for these opportunities. And, usually you have to work many, many years in order to get one of these opportunities. He's getting it in year one. So, hats off to him and the entire staff and program and all of the players that have put in the work and bought in. It's not easy to buy in. And they have, and that's a fun thing to be a part of.
He also may go down as the person with the largest that did not win the lottery, largest percentage pay bump inside of a year, from 600,000 to, in essence, 9 million.
8 million, yeah, 9 million.
Well, in essence, it's 9 because you get $1 million retaining bonus each year on top of that. So, that's about a 2.1 million % salary increase, man.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? That's what had to happen because I will tell you.
Yes.
You tried to squeak by with the original contract that he had, and we would have seen him go bye-bye the second week of January. Credit to Scott Dolson and that whole athletic department.
Well, you give credit to Scott Dolson, first of all, for hiring him. He found the right guy because that has been such an enormous problem for Indiana athletics over the last several years, not getting the right guy. And you can tell pretty quickly whether you have the right guy or not. And it doesn't matter. I'm not talking about any specific sport, but it doesn't matter because it's not been just one sport. But when you do get the right guy, you can tell. And everything about Coach Cignetti was translating early. His brashness probably made a lot of people a little nervous because you got to back that up.
Right.
And everybody was thinking, dude, do you know where you are?
Right.
Do you know who you're coaching? Didn't care. I mean, that takes onions. I mean, that takes onions to do it. To do it is one thing, but to do it knowing you're standing on top of a house that has been made of cards, that takes onions.
Yeah, it does. And I don't talk to Scott Dolson every week. We talk occasionally. He's a friend of mine. I've known him since back when he was a manager at IU or on the basketball program. And so, I mean, we're friends. We talk fairly regularly. And I remember after Coach Cignetti was hired, Scott said something that I just thought stood out. It was different than any of the other hires that he had. And he said, I don't really know how to put my finger on why he is the way that he is, but he's just different. And there's something about him that makes you buy in. And I think he's going to get these players to buy in. And that was week one before any practices, before anything had taken place. And so Scott saw it right off the bat. And he's just said, look, I think you'll see it. He said, I think you'll see some some Coach Knight in him. I think you'll see some new era coaches in him. But he said, I will tell you, if he does what he says he's going to do, no one will outwork him. And I think the players will buy in. And I think we can say both of those statements are extremely accurate at this point.
100%. And it is palpable when you do meet him. I mean, he is, when he first says it, the very first time, it takes you aback because
Sure.
of the things that I just said. But it didn't take long to see the fruits of what he was saying. And yeah, there are comparisons of him to, a mixture of Saban, of Knight. Knight was a great preparatory guy. It was a great, I mean, I'm not telling you something you don't know, and that's where I see those man, he is big about preparation and game planning and how he's going to attack things. Knight wasn't the bragger. Well, I shouldn't say bragger. He didn't make all those statements that far that I'm acknowledging.
Yeah, but I will say this. Media, social media, things are different now than they were when Coach Knight was a Hall of Fame coach. And so I think I think Coach Cignetti would have been very similar to Coach Knight had he coached back and had this success back in the 80s and 90s. I think it would have been a lot more similar. I don't think we would have seen some of the stuff we do now. But with social media, with the way you have to recruit today, you do have to be a little bit more like that. And you do have to do something to stand out. And when you can back it up, there's nothing more fun in sports. Think about, just our listeners, if you go play pickup ball with your buddies or you go play golf with your buddies, talking trash and backing it up is fun. It's just what it's all about. Like every golf group's got that one dude that talks smack and backs it up. And when he doesn't back it up, everyone loves to go after him and get him. And Coach Cignetti put himself on an island up on a gigantic hill. And so far up to this point, he's backed it up. And losing to Ohio State wouldn't mean he's not backing it up. Beating Ohio State would definitely mean he is backing it up. But they've got to come out in this game. I know, hey, we're media, so we can say this. They've got to be competitive in this game. I know that's not what the coaches and players are going to say, and they better not. I'll be disappointed if they do, and we all should be disappointed if they do. But as long as they're competitive in this game, it's a win for the program overall, and they still got a fantastic opportunity to get to the college football playoff. If they go get a win, we're talking about a whole different scenario here. All of a sudden, then we're talking about beating Oregon and being the number one seed in this entire whole football playoff. So yeah, it's totally
you're the
different.
First person to say it, and I have even restrained myself from saying those words, but that is an exact fact.
For sure.
If they are able to get a win over Ohio State, who I think right now is better than Oregon. Not that I don't think Oregon is good. I just think
they're
Ohio
both really
State
good.
is good. But Ohio State has taken some dings here. They just lost their starting center to a ruptured Achilles. He's gone. I think that they had lost someone prior to that. But so had Indiana, just not right up leading up to the game. But this is gigantic for Ohio State. They cannot afford to lose this game because that makes them a 2-loss team, which that's not going to knock them out of the college football playoffs because they're Ohio State, but it knocks them down to they will have to travel in the college football playoffs at best if that were to happen. And you lose to Indiana at home. And Ryan Day he's had enough of losing to Jim Harbaugh for 5 years in a row before they got to beat them finally. And that's the difference. That's why Cignetti, I never thought he was going to leave, because why would you go put yourself in that pressure cooker when you can do and succeed and earn the same things at a place where it's not like that? Now, it may get that way one day if he builds it up, but it's not there now.
Yeah, and look, the winning against Ohio State would this trajectory of this team and program and coach has been, a storybook. But if they beat Ohio State, it even ramps up another level. And then to have the opportunity to play, Oregon in the Big Ten championship. I agree with your statement. I know Oregon beat Ohio State, but I think Ohio State with their young receivers and their new quarterback and the way they were all kind of getting acclimated with each other, I think they're playing as well as anyone in the country offensively right now. They have taken some injury dings, but anytime you can put yourself in the conversation of having an opportunity to beat Ohio State or an Oregon or someone like that, obviously your program's in the right position, and they're in the right position. It's just, I've been a little apprehensive. The Michigan game, I didn't feel great about it, and they came out and they handled business. This game, I've been a little more confident in this game than I have in the others. But as it gets closer, as the game time gets closer, I watched Ohio State play last week, and they played really good. I start to get a little more apprehensive again. And so, which is a good thing because we've won all the games I've been apprehensive so far. So we're going to keep it that way. But just a huge, incredible opportunity that I can't believe we are lucky enough to be able to discuss this Indiana program has at this time of the year.
Absolutely. How's your weekend looking, brother?
Well, it's going to look a lot better depending on what 3:30 on Saturday looks like.
Yeah,
because that 12 o'clock game, as we get that game over by 3:30, we'll know whether I'm going to be in a good mood or I'm going to kick the dog all weekend.
I'm wondering who
I don't have
Lee Corso was going to pick. Yeah, he's just kidding.
Lee Corso,
I don't think he lets his heart get in the way very often, and so I can't see him not taking Brutus in this game because they're favored, they're at home. But we shall see.
It won't shock me either way. Let's put it that way.
Well, I hope he comes out wearing that Indiana sweater again.
Yeah, I know. I hope they get him a bigger one.
Well, that was the one from 1979.
I know. Let's just get him a little bigger one.
I'm not wearing
what I was the size of 1979.
Oh, let me tell you,
either.
I gave all that stuff to my daughter years ago.
I know.
And it fits her just fine.
Yep.
I'm like, oh my God. And that bus, that double-decker bus, it's located right outside of town. What is it, 46 that goes to Spencer?
Is it?
Whatever, but it's located right outside of town. That old double-decker bus that he drove the team in on the first. Yeah, it's crazy. But well, enjoy the weekend, brother. Enjoy watching the game. We'll be thinking about you.
Same to you. Appreciate it.
And everybody, don't forget, if you know a kid, have a kid, are a kid, know someone who has a kid, or it doesn't have to be a kid that needs work with their jump shot or basic basketball fundamentals. And when I say that, I'm not talking about just dribbling the ball. I mean the real fundamentals that lead you to being better. You need to get to myjumpshot.com and let the Shot Father do some work with you. And as a matter of fact, I had Nick Zeisloff on when you couldn't make it to the post game show, and he's doing something up there in the Chicago area, similar. And I said, you need to get with the Shot Father, Todd Leary, and collaborate. He goes, oh, I would love that. So got to get you hooked up with Nick Zeisloff, because he's got some stuff going on up in the Chicagoland area, and that's a big area up there.
For sure, no doubt.
We'll get that to you, brother. Appreciate you very much.
Have a good weekend. Hopefully we're celebrating tomorrow afternoon.
Absolutely. There he is, the Shot Father, Todd Leary, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.